ENGENEs need to take a step back. Disclaimer, this is not intended with hate. I actually had another video planned, but I wanted to talk about this instead because it's a really big situation right now. Heeseung leaving ENGENEs is something that caught a lot of people off guard. It was like a random Tuesday announcement, and everything since then has been really messy. On March 10th, the news broke, along with an official statement from the Lift Lab and a handwritten letter from Heeseung himself, which was shared on Weverse. Some people questioned the authenticity of the letter, but that's still up for debate. There was also a group statement released by ENGENEs. Looking at what has happened so far, one thing that stands out is how packed ENGENEs' schedule has been. Even as someone who isn't a fan, I can tell they've had a very busy lineup of activities. Because of that, the timing of this departure feels sudden and unusual to many people. Another reason people find it strange is Heeseung's recent communication. He even recently talked about how ENGENEs is basically his family, which makes the situation feel even more abrupt given how recently he had been interacting with fans. There were also noticeable changes to scheduled events. For example, a fan video call event on March 11th was adjusted. His individual session was postponed, while the other members continued as planned. This suggests that his activities are being separated and possibly rescheduled individually. Additionally, fans who had signed up for events like high five or autograph sessions were informed that his sessions would be handled separately, while the rest of the group would proceed as usual. Overall, there have been multiple sudden changes, which adds to the confusion. That said, I'm not going to focus on whether he was forced to leave, or if it was entirely his own decision. Instead, what I want to focus on first is the reaction from ENGENEs. If I'm being honest, ENGENEs tend to have a strong parasocial connection with the group. K-pop fans in general can be quite parasocial, but in this fandom, it feels especially intense. I remember seeing a comment that described ENGENEs as 7 individuals who became a family. I think that image plays a big role in how fans are reacting now. ENGENEs have been doing a lot in response to Heeseung leaving ENGENEs. There is a petition circulating that has reached more than 1.5 million signatures. On top of that, ENGENEs have been protesting in front of HYBE, the Lift Lab, with protest trucks funded by both international and local fans. They've also been trying to spread awareness about the situation across different platforms. And this is the part I want to focus on. Let's be real. I understand that fans are extremely concerned. This is a big and emotional situation. However, it's not okay to constantly bring this issue into spaces that have nothing to do with ENGENEs, or even K-pop in general. If a post is about other idols or completely unrelated topics, why are ENGENEs bringing up Heeseung there? It starts to feel excessive and misplaced. And instead of helping, it can actually push people away from taking the situation seriously. ENGENEs are spamming completely unrelated spaces. Comment sections on TikTok, YouTube, and other platforms with messages about Heeseung. It doesn't stop there. On X Twitter, some fans have gone as far as dragging other groups into this, saying things like members of Stray Kids should leave instead, or making comments about BTS. At that point, it just becomes unnecessary and completely out of line. Why are other artists being dragged into this situation? If you want to start a petition, go ahead, no one is stopping you. If you want to send protest trucks, sure, that's your choice too. But why are random, unrelated people being dragged into this? For example, if you go onto Shane's community posts or even his YouTube shorts, a huge portion of the comments are just people asking him to bring back Heeseung. What exactly is he supposed to do? He's known for debunking people's heights and making content around that. He has nothing to do with ENGENEs. Expecting him to investigate or fix the situation just doesn't make sense. It's obvious he's aware of these comments, but he's choosing to ignore them while still interacting with normal posts from his audience. That alone should say something. Some ENGENEs are also spamming about this situation under Hudson Williams' page. He acts in heated rivalry that's not even remotely K-pop. What are these people supposed to do? And honestly, this reminds me of how fans have done similar things before. Like when Bunny spammed Mr. Beast over new jeans until he had to address it himself. What's frustrating is that some fans brush this off as a joke. But if thousands of people are repeatedly spamming the same message across multiple platforms, especially in spaces unrelated to K-pop, it stops being a joke. A joke would be a one-off comment or a single post. This is coordinated, repetitive behavior, and it's annoying. If anything, this kind of behavior is more likely to push people away rather than gain support. You can't expect others to take the situation seriously when it's being forced into every unrelated space. And to be clear, this isn't even about the full situation itself. This is purely about how some ENGENEs are reacting. This kind of behavior doesn't help the situation. It just makes the fandom look disorganized and, honestly, a bit embarrassing. Now, let's talk about the part one really hate. There were plans being discussed for Hello Melbourne K-pop Festival, where some fans wanted to give ENHYPEN a black ocean. And honestly, what is that supposed to achieve? Black oceans are one of the worst things you can do at a concert. You're not sending a message, you're just creating an uncomfortable and negative environment. At the end of the day, you're punishing the members who are still performing, even though they have nothing to do with the situation. Think about it from the idol's perspective. Imagine standing on stage, looking out at a crowd with no light sticks, no reactions, and no energy. That's not protest, that's just humiliating. Most idols have openly expressed that black oceans are terrible, and it's easy to understand why. And from what I've seen, many ENGENEs have already decided not to go through with that plan, which is honestly a good thing. The event already took place, and from what I heard so far, ENGENEs just followed the original fan chants with Heeseung's name. There were also other suggestions like bringing signs or chanting his name during breaks. That's not as extreme and it's more understandable, but even then, it can still feel a bit misplaced, especially when other artists are performing at the same event. I just want to say this about the whole situation. There is a real possibility that Heeseung left on his own. I feel like some people are being too narrow-minded to even consider that. At the same time, I understand why others think he may have been forced. It's just that right now, everything is so messy that it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't. There has been a post circulating online, supposedly from staff at HYBE, but honestly, it looks like it was written by a fan. Claims like him being seen crying and fainting in a hallway, where did that even come from? There's no clear source. Because of that, it's becoming harder to separate facts from rumors. Another thing I find contradictory is the way some ENGENEs are reacting. For a long time, fans have been saying that ENHYPEN is overworked, and I actually agree with that. Their schedule has been extremely packed and they deserve proper rest. But now, some of the same fans are suggesting that Heeseung should do solo activities while still staying in the group. Doesn't that go against the original concern? If overworking is the issue, how does adding both solo and group schedules solve that? It feels inconsistent, unless the idea is that the group takes a break while he promotes solo. The argument doesn't fully make sense to me. Looking at Belief Lab, they've been consistently doubling down on their statements. They have continued to reaffirm that he will not be returning to the group. Personally, I feel like if this situation were more uncertain, they might have stayed silent and just left it at the original statement. But instead, they've been reaffirming their stance. Because of that, as sad as it is, I really don't think he's coming back. On top of everything, the members don't even seem to have the space to process what's happening. At this point, I think the focus should shift back to what actually matters, the well-being of both the group and Heeseung. Belief Lab has also mentioned that their schedules are extremely packed, which limits his ability to do solo activities while staying in a group. And honestly, fans are right to question that if the schedule is the problem, then why not fix the schedule? In the end, I can understand both sides. I can see why some people believe he was forced to leave, and I can also see why he might have made this decision himself. The only thing that ENGENEs have been rightfully asking for is more information. Belief Lab is beating around the bush in this situation. All I really hope for is the best for both ENHYPEN and Heeseung moving forward. But this is just my opinion. What do you think? That's all for today. See you next time.